Hello there.
The cinema courtroom is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome back to the cinema courtroom. I am your host and galactic judge today, Makram Mark, presiding over another groundbreaking and suspenseful installment of the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast, where we place your favorite blockbuster motion pictures on trial. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or alternatively, the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel for weekly video content. Well, whenever I can put a video up, that is. But mostly, there's going to be weekly video coverage, which can only be found on the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel, and which aren't going to be like those podcasts. So, if you're looking for something nice, informative, and short, our Last Minute Verdict series is the perfect playlist to check out on our Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. I digress to say, I really appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast, and ask that you don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out, because every click on the icon counts. So please ring the notification bell loud and clear, and share this podcast with your friends, family, cat, dog, pigeon, whomever. We do not discriminate here, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and don't forget to rate the Cinema Courtroom Show out of 5 on your favorite platforms as well, because trust me, it really helps boost the algorithm machine. More than you know. Now, without further ado, let's review the movie of this podcast. Glass Onion, a Knives Out story, directed by Rian Johnson, which is now currently streaming on the Netflix platform. Let's dive in.
Delightful. Oh, have we started already?
Well, the murder hasn't happened.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, why not? As Watson said to Holmes...
It was Birdie who planted a remote device on a crossbow in revenge for you stealing her signature Ren diamond. Yeah. Look at the seat arrangement. It triangulates, Birdie, just perfectly with that thing, which is loaded with a dummy bolt aimed directly at Mr. Braun. Now, I believe close inspection will reveal some sort of remote triggering device, but more damn, that is a vintage Jayhawk brand crossbow. Jayhawk, Birdie J. Of course, there are other superfluous and rather clumsy clues. The hedgerow in the south garden, that spells the letter B. Birdie's room is the sacred chakra, which is the one blocked by guilt, blah, blah, blah. But the motive, yes. On the cleverly planted 1998 issue of the Face magazine with Birdie on the cover, she famously wore what became known as the Ren diamond. And that's a family heirloom, I believe.
Oh, to be clear, I didn't know what a blood diamond was, so...
Mr. Braun, the large pendulous locket, which has not left your neck, bit out of keeping with your breezy island style. Would you kindly open it for us?
My Ren diamond!
A dramatic, passionate, and colorful crime for a fashionista, Miss Birdie J. Unfortunately, this crime clashed with the presence of Benoit Blanc.
Now, before I get started with what I think about Glass Onion, I'm going to summarize the very first Knives Out installment. Well, I don't have to say very first, because it's pretty... You can already get the sense that the first Knives Out movie is the first one. Duh. Okay, So anyway, Knives Out, the first movie, features a different cast and a distinct murder mystery than Glass Onion, which we will be reviewing. But I want to talk about Knives Out first. So, any character who isn't Detective Blanc has their story arc wrapped in a nice little bow, if you will. Knives Out centers around the death of renowned crime novelist Harlan Fromby, who is found with his throat slit on the night of his 85th birthday, I believe, or maybe 86th. I'm not. Whatever. He's very old, okay? And the police initially rule Harlan's death as a suicide, but then a renowned private detective named Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, is hired to investigate further and get to the meat of what happened and who murdered Harlan Fromby. And as it turns out, Chris Evans' character does it. Anyway, so before they figure that out, Blanc suspects foul play and begins questioning the eccentric members of the Fromby family, who all had motives to murder Harlan. The family includes Harlan's daughter Linda and her husband Richard, their son Ransom. Yeah, that's the guy played by Chris Evans. Harlan's son Walt and his wife Donna, their son Jacob. Funny enough, the actor who plays the character Jacob happens to also be playing a character called Jacob in a show by Apple TV called Defending Jacob, and it happens to also star Chris Evans, related to him in that show, as his father. So I think that's a very funny coincidence. Or maybe it's not. Who knows? And Harlan's daughter-in-law, Johnny, and her daughter, Meg. So these are the names... Meg. So these are the names who are suspect of killing Harlan. Okay. So then Blanc delves deeper into the case and uncovers a tangled web of deceit and hidden agendas, as you would in any murder mystery, and each family member has something to hide, whether it's financial troubles, infidelity, or their dependency on Harlan's wealth. Another common trope, kind of very popular for murder mysteries. Okay, so we have a nurse who goes by the name Marta Cabrera, and Blanc enlists her help. Marta is a nurse. She's unable to lie without throwing up due to some rare condition of which I don't know the name. I don't think the movie even bothers specifying that. But we know that she vomits every time she lies. And that's because Marta becomes an integral part of the investigation, providing valuable insights and also uncovering crucial pieces of information. So, as the puzzle unravels, it becomes clear that Harlan had discovered some dark secrets about his family and was planning to cut them off from his fortune. The family's desperation to maintain their luxurious lifestyles leads to a series of shocking revelations and unexpected alliances. In the final twist, Ryan Johnson then reveals that Ransom, the black sheep of the family, had orchestrated Harlan's murder and framed our protagonist, Marta. Oh, who also happens to be played by Ana de Armas, who I think is a very, very good actress. She looks good and she performs good. That's a big plus. However, Blanc, with his sharp detective skills, sees through Chris Evans' character Ransom's scheme, and then, exposes the truth with a whole ass montage. So in the end, justice is served, and the Fromby family is left to deal with the repercussions of their actions. And that is why I think that Knives Out is a gripping and masterfully crafted whodunit that keeps you guessing until the very end of the third act. Okay, we just talked about Knives Out. Cool. But how about Glass Onion? Is it as much of a gripping and masterfully crafted whodunit like the first movie? Not quite. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, is what I believe to be a fascinating addition to the Knives Out franchise. Fascinating. I'm not going to tell you whether or not it's good until later on in this review, so keep on listening. So, Knives Out, Glass Onion, continues the tradition of having what they like to try to be captivating screenplays that keep audiences on the edge of their seats. And I think that one of the most intriguing aspects of this film is the skillful rotation of the story, packed with twists and turns that initially appear too predictable to be true. Again, that doesn't really say much on whether or not Glass Onion is good. That's just something that's commonly featured in most successful murder mysteries. But can Glass Onion stand out on its own and maybe be a potential trilogy, not just two movies? That's what I really want to try and unpack here in the cinema courtroom today. And also, it's one of those mysteries where you naively contemplate that the plot won't follow the anticipated path, but then the filmmakers ingenuously steer it in that, path, leaving you pleasantly mind-boggled. Or maybe you just predicted it, then maybe it's not so pleasant because you're expecting something to shock you, and that's perfectly valid. So, whether or not Glass Onion has done that, I'm also going to get into. And listen, in the first Knives Out movie, viewers were treated to a full-fledged murder mystery complete with a list of suspects carefully examined throughout the motion picture. The narrative then took its unexpected turn, which I really appreciated, when our protagonist Marta finds herself unintentionally involved in Harlan's death, leading to a significant portion of the second act dedicated to her desperate attempts to conceal her role in the unfortunate incident. However, in the first Knives Out movie, as the story unfolds, the predictable killer who, out of hindsight, Chris Evans was very suspicious. But the killer, usually we want to go for, the cleaner, not someone who's so obvious. And I think that's what Knives Out takes advantage of when it comes to the viewer's perception. And it leaves Glass Onion with a much bigger challenge. Can it replicate the exact same feeling of suspense and, mystery element? Anyway, so because the first installment of Knives Out successfully crafted a compelling murder mystery, as I've just summarized, audiences naturally are eagerly awaiting the end of Glass Onion and to see if it is as much of a compelling murder mystery as the first Knives Out movie. And Glass Onion has big shoes to fill. And now we have Glass Onion exclusively streaming on Netflix after a limited theatrical run. Just to summarize the plot for Glass Onion, now that we've already summarized the plot for the first Knives Out movie, keep in mind again that the actor for Detective Blanc remains the exact same in Glass Onion, even though Glass Onion features a whole different cast and a different story context. So just keep that in mind as I talk about Glass Onion here in this review. So, in Glass Onion, we have the character Miles Braun, the billionaire co-founder of the cutting-edge technology corporation Alpha, who decides to spice things up by hosting a murder mystery game at his luxurious mansion. I think that's the most common theme in the Knives Out trilogy. Not trilogy. Well, it might become one. No. In the Knives Out movies, is that the characters who we meet are pretentious billionaires who, and one of them ends up being the killer because, their perception of wealth clouds their morality. So anyway, the mansion is, the title of this movie, Glass Onion. That's what it's called. And it's situated on a secluded Greek island. Now, the thing is, Miles is not an ordinary host. And as you later find out, and he's also played by Edward Norton, which you probably already know, but we also find out that he happens to be the killer. But anyway, basically in the beginning of the movie, he invites a group of intriguing individuals to partake in a, the murder mystery game. First, we have Lionel Toussaint, the brilliant head scientist at Alpha, whose intelligence is acquainted with no bounds. Then we have Claire DeBella, the esteemed governor of Connecticut, who brings her commanding presence to the gathering. Adding a touch of controversy is Birdie J, a famous fashion designer and model known for exceeding boundaries. And let's not forget Duke Cody, a charismatic men's rights streamer with a loyal following. Last but not least, there's Cassandra, quote unquote, Andy Brand, the ousted co-founder of Alpha, who is very close to the vest and harbors her own secrets. To kick things off, Miles presents each of his guests with a mysterious wooden puzzle box containing an invitation. While the others skillfully solve the enigma, Andy decides to take a more direct approach by smashing the box open. With the invitations in their possession, the group embarks on a journey to Miles' private island, accompanied by Birdie's assistant, Peg, and Duke's girlfriend, Whiskey. And just when things seem like a whirlwind of fun and games, the renowned Detective Blanc unexpectedly joined the party. Yay, Daniel Craig! Although Edward Norton's Miles claims that, hold on a minute, I didn't invite Detective Blanc to the party. But, he allows him to stay out of courtesy, assuming that someone just played a bitter prank on them. Little does Miles know that actually Blanc's presence was coordinated. And Blanc wastes no time and just, as you've probably heard in the clip that I played before this review, Blanc wastes no time whatsoever in unraveling the murder mystery game devised by Miles, and privately warns him that his guests may have sinister motives. It's like putting a loaded gun and turning off the lights. I cannot mimic his accent as effectively as maybe some talented voice actors might do, so I'm very sorry for that attempt. Okay. And then, tensions increase as Andy storms off after a heated argument with the rest of the group, who are a bunch of, again, pretentious billionaires. The situation, oh no, it takes a dark turn when Duke tragically dies. It's almost like Knives Out as a murder mystery movie. So, yeah, there was bound to be a death in Glass Onion, a Knives Out sequel. So, after Duke's death, because he was drinking from Miles' glass, suspicions are raised that perhaps Andy might be behind his poisoning because she just disappeared from the scene. And with the police not due to arrive until the morning, I mean, that's where all the taxpayer dollars are going, people. Haha. The police have to, come at 7 a.m., not 5 a.m., you know what I mean? Anyway, panic ensues among the remaining survivors. As the power suddenly goes out, everyone disperses in the darkness. Blanc locates Andy, but before they can make sense of the situation, an unknown assailant shoots her. Gathering this terrified group, Blanc reveals that he has solved Andy's murder, leaving everyone stunned. And then we have an extended flashback sequence. The screen goes black, right? And then they reveal an extended flashback sequence, catching up to the present day again, adding further context to who and what is going on. We learned that Andy had tragically died, so now it's a double murder mystery. Who the hell killed Duke, and who the hell killed Andy? So she actually doesn't exist. She already died prior to this murder mystery game, apparently by suicide. Funny enough, in the first Knives Out movie, Harlan's death was ruled a suicide. So it's always that murder mystery starter. This person has committed suicide, but then it turns out it's a murder. So we know it's a murder. That her twin sister, Helen, hires Blanc to investigate, as well as the circumstances surrounding Andy's death. Well, it turns out that Andy has discovered the dangerous properties of clear and an alternative fuel developed by Alpha, the corporation I've mentioned earlier, and despite her concerns, Miles proceeded with its imminent launch, putting lives at risk. Andy's untimely demise leads Blanc and Helen on a quest to uncover the Wizard of Oz. No. Yeah. Anyway, Helen assumes Andy's identity at Miles' party, assisting Blanc in his investigation. Together, they dig deeper into the motives of Miles' acquaintances, realizing that each of them had visited Andy's residence on the day that she died. And then there's, more level of suspicion as they try and locate clues, but the crucial piece of evidence, a napkin of Andy's original work, remains elusive. So amidst shocking revelations and very shocking encounters, Blanc deduces that, the popular actor played character is the culprit. Miles, played by, drumroll please, someone who played the Hulk in the MCU in The Incredible Hulk, Edward Norton. He is the culprit behind both murders. Funny enough, Chris Evans plays Captain America in the MCU. So it seems like Rian Johnson really wants to make MCU actors the killers. I mean, hey, that might become a problem in the third movie. I'm going to get more into that after I finish summarizing Glass Onion, which I'm almost done doing. Anyway, so Miles, upon discovering her possession of the damning napkin, has killed Andy, and Duke unwittingly witnessed that crime. So then Duke blackmails Miles and tells him, we're going to put this on Alpha News. And then Miles resorts to poisoning Duke with pineapple juice, knowing his severe allergy, which we've learned in the beginning of the Glass Onion movie. Oh, Duke is allergic to pineapple. Cool. But actually it was not that predictable, which I really appreciated. And then he takes advantage of the pistol possessed by Duke to shoot Helen. As tension reaches its peak, and Helen happened to, not get shot, she discovers the incriminating napkin in Miles' office, only for him to burn it, erasing the proof, and basically clearing Miles' involvement in the murder of Andy. Classic third act resolution type shockers. Miles' friends choose to stand against him, willing to testify to his crimes. So, the billionaire characters happen to become the saviors of the story. A cathartic rage then consumes Helen as she destroys Miles' cherished glass sculptures, showing us, a girl boss moment, and then the group joins her in a powerful act in defiance. Okay, cool. A billionaire revolution. Ha ha ha. Billionaire rebels. Seeking justice, Helen then ignites a bonfire and tosses in a shard of the hazardous clear, evoking a dramatic explosion that engulfs the mansion and even destroys the borrowed Mona Lisa, which was referenced once in the second act of the movie. This catastrophic event not only serves as a powerful testament to the danger of Clear, but it also ensures Miles' downfall because his glass onion is gone. As the story then concludes after its third act, Helen and Blanc watch from the beach as police boats approach the island, marking the beginning of the end for Miles' freedom. It's a tale of deception, revenge, and the pursuit of truth that will leave you on the edge of your seat until the very end. That's what I think Glass Onion has been able to do. Well, alright, now that I got the summary for Glass Onion out of the way, here are my thoughts on the movie. To be honest, the prospect of a second Knives Out installment caught me by surprise a bit. Because this isn't one of those Godfather 2 scenarios where there has to be a sequel or, Lord of the Rings situation where they had the two towers because there need to be multiple movies to finish the story. Well, Knives Out is one self-contained story. The first movie is. So the fact that we're getting another means that it would be very crucial to maintain the same detective throughout, with each case offering a fresh, distinct screenplay. So, yeah, that's the only way I believe multiple standalone murder mystery pictures can be created successfully. In this regard, Daniel Craig's portrayal of Detective Blanc, I'm just going to say right now, was a stroke of genius. Almost like a post-James Bond retirement plan, if you will. Like, retaining Craig's character while introducing a fresh story concept seemed like the perfect recipe for prosperity. Glass Onion proves to be an enjoyable and entertaining movie, in my opinion, with Daniel Craig once again consolidating the show. Daniel Craig's performance is a masterclass in acting, combining moments of comedy with skillfully delivered scenes that just draw viewers into the story, much like his embodiment of the iconic James Bond character. Craig infuses Detective Blanc once more with a captivating intensity, which is evident in the piercing gaze of his eyes that we see in most scenes with the actor. Additionally, and this is something that may seem minor, but actually I was surprised on how they executed it. Glass Onion provides a glimpse into Detective Blanc's personal life, further enriching his character. And what I mean by that is in a subtle and understated manner. And again, this is a very minor thing, and I don't. The reason why I'm even including it in this review is because it's not something we see often when it comes to the caliber of the execution of it. The film Glass Onion implies Blanc's homosexuality, a detail that interestingly holds no bearing on the plot whatsoever. It's literally just a brief scene that implies that, Blanc lives with another man. Nothing more, which I honestly respect. Not because I don't want diversity. And just to be straightforward, if you are listening to the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast for the very first time, listen, I am an advocate for good representation in my programming, not forced representation or tokenism. And I don't really draw that much of a colossal line if people enjoy watching the character. And it doesn't matter if they're gay, lesbian, heterosexual, or whatever. You can enjoy Queens, and it doesn't matter, the sexuality of its lead singer, Freddie Mercury. Like, you can still enjoy listening to him. And in fact, I don't know, it adds more depth into some of his music. I mean, that's what art is, expression. So anyway, as long as the character Detective Blanc in Glass Onion remains enjoyable like he was in the first Knives Out movie, that's okay, right? I mean, I think it is. So when you have Detective Blanc be an enjoyable character in not only the first movie, but this one, and you imply that, okay, he happens to be coincidentally gay, but not turn it into some social gatekeeping pudding. What? Like, you're merely just adding a subtle element of a character's personal life. So anyway, I know that I shouldn't have to be giving a movie points based on representation, but in this day and age, solid representation, not shoehorned in your face, is as rare as a hen's teeth. If you've been captivated by what you've heard so far, prepare yourself for a treat throughout the remainder of this podcast, because we're not finished, ladies and gentlemen. But before we proceed, let me take a moment to remind you of an exciting opportunity. You can become one of, yes, the first listeners to enjoy new episodes on my audio feed. And hear this? It only requires 2 simple steps. To ensure you never miss a single captivating episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show, simply hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell right now. Or rate this podcast out of 5 on Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or even the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel for exclusive video coverage every week. We've got you covered. Prepare yourself to dive deep in the thrilling realm of movie verdicts and industry affairs with the Cinema Courtroom Show. And here's an exciting bonus for all of our esteemed listeners. By subscribing to the Cinema Courtroom today, I can promise you a front row seat to insightful discussions and thought-provoking debates that will enhance your movie watching experience. Look, this is the perfect podcast for movie connoisseurs like yourself. I am your host, Makram, urging you to subscribe and join our cinema jury, where we determine the verdicts. All you have to do is look up and subscribe to the Cinema Courtroom on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel today. Embrace the power of justice in the cinemaverse with the Cinema Courtroom, powered by real passion, fueling film and TV fandom. So this is now a program break. What that essentially means is that in the middle of my podcast, I'm just going to it's just going to be laid back and chill until I kick off the review again. So in the meantime, you could leave it on autopilot and just get yourself a drink, find a pigeon to stomp on, I suppose. Don't do that. We must treat pigeons with the uttermost respect. So don't stomp, nor maim, nor kill through microwaving, nor burn pigeons. Anyway, I want to capitalize on this program break, not with my shitty jokes, but rather I'm going to use this break to converse about a quote from Glass Onion dropped by Detective Blanc. And I want to discuss why I believe that quote from the movie is a well-scripted line. Actually, you know what? I think it's better if I play it first. So, take a listen.
It's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth. Don't you think?
Okay, so first off, I think the loud majority of users on Twitter can really benefit from the quote that you just heard. It's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth. The act of speaking without thought refers very much to speaking impulsively or perhaps without any careful consideration of the words being uttered, which can actually lead to, hasty and potentially incorrect statements. Truth, on the other hand, is rooted in accuracy, sincerity, and a genuine outlook of reality. Truth involves expressing facts, which is what Detective Blanc is obviously obliged to do in the Knives Out movies, or just genuine beliefs that are well thought out and supported by evidence or personal conviction. When we mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth, we run the risk of spreading misinformation or exchanging opinions that are not well founded. This can lead to confusion, misunderstandings, and even conflict, which we see unfold in Glass Onion, the movie that we're going to be reviewing right after this break shortly. But not before I point out another thing. Blanc is basically calling this character stupid without her even realizing it, which re-emphasizes the point of Glass Onion. And that point is that, listen, I think the movie is trying to be blunt with how it's adapting the screenplay here. Every one of those suck-it-up billionaire characters, especially Miles, are boneheads. Anyway, this is my take on a scene from Glass Onion. Now, I'm going to be talking about how Glass Onion keeps viewers engaged.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
Okay, so let us delve into the heart of Glass Onion and Knives Out story as a movie overall, specifically focusing on its mastery of the twist and turn elements that are integral to the Knives Out experience. Because, well, obviously it's the murder mystery genre. One can make the assertion that Glass Onion and Knives Out No, not story. A Knives Out mystery. I always. Okay, just a side thing before I continue. I always like mistake it with other titles when they say it's a title story, or how, or El Camino, a Breaking Bad story, was what I first thought the title was. But then looking at it again was like, oh, okay, El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. It's not like, Star Wars Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So yeah, I have to keep that in mind when I refer to the movie's title. So apologies for that minor inaccuracy. I digress to say, though, that Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, presents an array of intriguing twists and turns that keep viewers engaged from the first to third act of the movie. A prime example is the revelation that Andy is not actually Andy, but her twin sister Helen, as unveiled through an extended flashback sequence. This sequence depicts Detective Blanc being hired by Helen to investigate the murder of her sister. So we actually thought that the murder mystery was about to happen in the island, but it turns out it already did, and we only knew that because of the extended flashback sequence, which I found to be a bit odd because it felt like a last resort kind of moment that Rian Johnson had. He was like, okay, I need a last minute thing to tie this whole movie together. It's like he wrote the thing backwards, but not really, because it's like he wrote halfway backwards some of the beginning, and he was like, okay, let me come up with something to fill in the gaps, while not referencing or hinting toward there being a murder mystery in the beginning of the movie. Minus a couple of facial expressions. So that's something that I believe that this movie that might be one of the weaknesses that this movie had. Yeah. The more I think about it, yeah. I think that's definitely a thing that they could have executed better. As for the sequence itself, I think it kind of explained Detective Blanc's presence on Miles' private island and the Glass Onion. And also the elaborate murder mystery game set up by Miles. Anyway, the introduction of Helen as a potential suspect adds a fascinating twist to the audience's perspective, as the motive behind the murder revolves around a copyrighted napkin. The intricate web of suspects exhibits substantial motives, immersing viewers in a whirlwind of suspicion and uncertainty. However, I do think that it's worth noting that while the plot is well organized and coherent, and there's no doubt about that in my mind, my minor issue, another issue actually that I have with the movie, lies in the predictability of the killer. Miles, portrayed by the talented Edward Norton, who again, coincidentally, plays the Hulk in a Marvel movie, ultimately turns out to be the predictable killer in Glass Onion. And I have a theory of why that is. They want to have a recognizable actor to a recognizable character by the end of the movie. So people can, tweet the Hulk killed someone in another movie, or something to appeal to the masses. And it's kind of like if they just invented a character to become a killer. Not invent a character, but if they got a actor who wasn't well known to be the killer, then it becomes a bit of a okay. I'm not going to remember this guy's face. Whereas Edward Norton, Chris Evans from the first Knives Out movie, they're marketable performers. So, other than Dave Bautista, I believe Edward Norton had to be a killer from a marketing standpoint. Anyway, this whole revelation of Miles, while well structured within the story, left me with a slight sense of disappointment. And the first Knives Out, which I recapped in the beginning of this movie, took a more, although Chris Evans was the actor who played Hugh was a big name in the industry, it was still unpredictable because the way that this whole thing was shot and the way they edited its twist and turn elements and how they tried to frame Marta as the killer. For example, when we're talking about the first movie, Fran, I believe her name was, Marta's friend. When Fran outed Chris Evans from the murderer closet, when she said the line, "You did this," she actually meant Hugh, the actual killer's name, did this. But the way they edited that hint made it sound like you did this. It made it such a clever twist that you could actually watch it again and you can't unhear the word Hugh instead of you. Like, that's how effective it was in the way it sounded to the audience's eardrums. However, I had initially hoped that the filmmakers, especially Rian Johnson for Glass Onion, would take a daring approach and spotlight someone unexpected as the murderer, challenging the audience's expectations. However, the decision to reveal Miles as the culprit, poisoning Duke with his pineapple allergy, mirrors the approach taken in the first Knives Out film, where Chris Evans, who also plays a Marvel character, turned out to be the killer. So, again, word is going to come out that, okay, the Hulk and Captain America just kill people. It seems that the creative team opted for a familiar formula, which, although not groundbreaking, still managed to deliver an engaging plot. I just hope that there would be a tad more substance. But, hey, at least the plot was riveting, right? To Rian Johnson's credit, Glass Onion does a exceptional job at weaving together an intricate narrative, incorporating a pivotal moment between Duke and Miles. At first, it appears that Duke and Miles are collaborating on a revolutionary idea of launching a broadcast station for Alpha. However, as the extended flashback sequence unfolds, we then learn that Duke was in fact blackmailing Miles over Andy's death. This unexpected revelation adds another layer of complexity to the story of Glass Onion, leading to a sequence where Miles cunningly frames Duke for a murder that he himself had orchestrated. And I still think, with all of this movie's weaknesses, the clever manipulation of the plot for Glass Onion by Rian Johnson keeps the audience hooked and ensures that the story remains both intriguing and magnetic. Okay, so let's forget Glass Onion for a moment and talk from a general outlook. An acceptable murder mystery movie typically includes several key elements consisting of the following. Otherwise, it is not, to me, an acceptable murder mystery picture. 1. Intriguing premise. Look, this is not up for debate or discussion. A murder mystery film must have a compelling and intriguing premise that hooks the audience from the beginning to end. This can involve a complex murder case, a unique set of circumstances, or an interesting backdrop. 2. Let me pull out my notes here. Tension and suspense. The movie should build and maintain a sense of tension and suspense throughout. That is achievable through atmospheric settings, dramatic soundtrack, skillful pacing, and effective and top-notch cinematography. The audience should feel on edge, eagerly anticipating the resolution of the mystery, right? 3. Clever plot twists. Okay, you know me, and you know any murder mystery connoisseur when they say that a murder mystery movie must also keep the audience guessing and engaged throughout the first to third act of the movie. Plot twists that are unexpected but logical is the way to go. And also where the pieces of the puzzle slowly fall into place, making the viewing experience exciting and enjoyable. And 4, ladies and gentlemen, a logical resolution. An acceptable murder mystery movie should have a satisfying and logical resolution. The resolution to the mystery should make sense within the established narrative and be consistent with the clues provided to the audience. It should avoid cheap or contrived endings that leave viewers feeling cheated or unsatisfied. With all of these universal murder mystery factors established, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, can be considered an acceptable expansion of the Knives Out murder mystery universe. While it may not reach the level of exceptionalism that some critics have attributed to it, or align with the rigid criteria that I just laid out, the film, despite not meeting all of the 4 murder mystery factors, still offers an enjoyable and captivating viewing experience. While not a skillful one, I would gladly revisit Glass Onion because I find it more of a rewatchable movie than other works directed by Rian Johnson. I'm not including Breaking Bad Ozymandias because that was directed by Rian Johnson, and it's arguably one of the most climatic episodes of television. So Rian Johnson is a damn talented director. But, when it came to Star Wars The Last Jedi, well, that's not a rewatchable movie. But Glass Onion is. But the thing is, I don't know. I do express concerns, I guess, about the potential predictability of future Knives Out installments. It is my sincere hope that the franchise does not fall into the trap of becoming a series of diluted murder mystery films, each following a predictable premise. To maintain the series' core elements and satirical DNA, the creative team must strive to establish fresh and compelling storylines that continue to surprise and captivate audiences with the way that the screenplay is penned. In conclusion, the Cinema Courtroom recommends Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, because it successfully delivers a fun-to-watch spectacle infested with intrigue, magnetism, and mystery, much like its predecessor, or rather, almost like its predecessor, because I concur that the first Knives Out movie is a much better installment than Glass Onion. Granted, I still enjoyed watching Glass Onion on Netflix, mainly because Daniel Craig's portrayal of Detective Blanc is once again exceptional, and also the character development of Detective Blanc, and how the devil is in the details, as we've already learned about his diverse love life, which I already talked about in this review. But in case you want me to remind you guys again, well, Detective Blanc is gay, so yeah, there's that. But overall, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, serves as a fitting sequel to the original Knives Out movie, exhibiting a neatly organized plot, despite how predictable and annoying it can be at times. But that is why I attribute a win to the first Knives Out installment. All in all, Glass Onion, despite my greater appreciation for the first Knives Out picture, manages to strike a delicate balance between retaining the essence of the Knives Out series and yet offering something fresh and engaging throughout its runtime. I want to add one more thing that I neglected to mention in my review. The name Glass Onion is literally the title of a track produced and distributed by the Beatles band. So I think that was a nice little touch that Rian Johnson did there. But I would only hope that Rian Johnson does not dilute the Knives Out series as it gets upgraded to a trilogy and franchise in hopefully the not too distant future, because I want to see how they're going to do a third movie and whether or not I should just tap out. But if you can come out with new ideas and story concepts, well then I am all for a Knives Out sequel, and I am most definitely advocating for Glass Onion. We have now reached the bittersweet end of this podcast. Okay, let me just do that again. Let's minus the notorious British accent. Okay, let's start over. We have now reached the end of this podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Cinema Courtroom Show, where we discussed Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. I had a lot of fun doing this podcast, so be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this new installment of the Cinema Courtroom Show podcast. I hope to see you guys again in the next episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show, which launches on Spotify, Anchor, now Substack. Link to that will be in the description below. Stitcher as well, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel for exclusive video coverage that you're not going to be getting on the Spotify feed, nor the Anchor feed, or Stitcher, or the Google Podcast feed, or Amazon. It's only going to be available on YouTube. The podcast will be available in many audio feeds, yes, but the video coverage, well, I reserved that for the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. So if by any chance you found this podcast on Spotify or any of the other platforms that I've listed that's not YouTube, now would be the time to just look up the Cinema Courtroom Show on YouTube and subscribe there. Thank you once again for listening to this podcast till the end. I am your galactic judge and host, Makram, and I hope you have a spectacular day.
Hello there.
Court is now dismissed.